Today I want to shoot a video about my favorite brake controller, the Autobrake. It's a unique brake controller because it mounts on the trailer instead of the tow vehicle. There's a few different variables or a few different options these days when it comes to brake controllers. There's of course the standard brake controller in your tow vehicle. Some vehicles come equipped with them. Most of the time it seems like they're an added aftermarket option. And then there's some other options like the Kurt Echo, Bluetooth wireless brake controller, of course wireless to the controller, your phone, not the vehicle itself, it still plugs in. And then there is the Autobrake, which is hardwired into the trailer. This is my favorite option, and it's kind of a unique deal because I rent these trailers out, and so I wanted something that would be available to everyone that rents them, but also secure, something you didn't have to fiddle around with, and this, in my opinion, fits the bill the best for what I'm looking for. So I already listed some of the reasons that I like it, but security is one of them because of how it's installed. It's hardwired in. There's a cable that comes out the bottom, and I've teed it into the wire harness. So, and it's very low profile. A lot of people wouldn't know what this is or know that it is anything at all. So I like that. I'm not worried about somebody walking off with it. It doesn't just plug in like the Kurt Echo plugs into the 7-way plug on the back of the tow vehicle, and then you plug your trailer into that. So if it was in fact left outside, somebody could just unplug it and walk away with it. So I like the security end of this. I also like the ease of use. It is obviously something that needs to be installed. It's not like the Kurt Echo where you just plug it in, but once it's installed, you go through an initial setup procedure, which without the key fob is done simply with two people by holding the brakes down. One person holds the brakes down, the second person holds these two buttons down, gets into program mode, and then selects the number of axles, and then you're ready to go. No more fiddling around with it ever. Somebody who's unfamiliar with a brake controller can't screw up the gain with this brake controller because it determines it based on a number of factors. There's accelerometers in it monitoring things and all of that. So somebody's not going to crank the gain up to 7 while going down a mountain pass and just cook the brakes in my camper when they should be relying a little bit more on their truck brakes. So I like that. Gives me peace of mind about the brakes on my camper, knowing that somebody's not going to overuse them while towing. And so that is another huge thing. When I'm renting my campers out to people, it's people that have, if nothing else, probably not used my camper before, but maybe they've never towed anything at all before, and maybe they're completely unfamiliar with brake control. They don't need to know anything. They can drive away with it, and they just don't need to do anything. The Kurt Echo, if you are running it through the phone, if it loses connection, that's fine. It'll continue to operate, but I don't even want to have somebody have to deal with that. I don't want to fiddle around with, oh, well, let's connect your phone to this brake controller and, let's set gain to 3 and whatever. None of that. They don't need to learn a new thing. It just works. So I love the ease of use with it. So those are kind of the reasons that I've chosen these. That I have had a couple problems, and they're not necessarily Autobrake problems, but nonetheless problems I've run into. So while one is an Autobrake problem, when coupled with the newer GM vehicles anyways, I've had an instance, and I haven't witnessed it, but the newer GM vehicles, I guess they get an error on their dash. It doesn't like this. It doesn't play nice. And so in that instance, I have had to remove the fuse just to disable it entirely, which isn't hard to do, but does need to be done if they have their own brake controller and this one is causing interference. So that's the only Autobrake related problem I've actually run into. Second problem, which maybe you could attribute to Autobrake, would be that I had one of these. I've got 3 campers, so I've hitched these things up to a lot of different vehicles, and I would say about 80% of the people that rent from me do not have a brake controller. So it's giving me access to a whole crowd of people that otherwise would either A, need to go and have a brake controller installed in their tow vehicle, or B, would be renting someone else's camper. So it's given me access. That's a whole, I should have listed that in the positives because that's a whole huge point. of why it's good to have a brake controller option available in the first place. So anyways, on one of my campers, the brake controller quit working, and I noticed the LED light when lit was kind of dim, and the problem turned out to be was a dirty fuse or fuse holder combo. I took some contact cleaner, sprayed it up in the hole, sprayed off the fuse, put it back together again, and the problem has not come back. So that's something to be aware of, I guess. That has happened to me in the several years and many dozens of rentals. That's the one problem I've had. And yeah, so then the last problem that I ran into, I'm not familiar off the top of my head with it, but there's a little key fob remote that comes with these, and I guess you can change the setting. I believe you can change the setting with the key fob while you're driving. You can strengthen it or weaken it. The way you set it up is for the number of axles, 1, 2, or 3. I've got single axle trailers, so I've set mine to a single LED blink indicating 1 axle. Well, I had a problem actually with this camper where when you were applying the brakes, there was a really loud humming coming from the brakes on the camper. As long as you were moving, as soon as you came to a complete stop, the humming stopped. But when you were rolling at all, there was a really loud humming. You could clearly hear it in the tow vehicle. And what that turned out to be was that this brake controller was set to triple axle mode. So when I got into program mode, I saw 3 blinks indicating triple axle mode. And that was the problem. When I changed it back to single axle mode, the problem went away. I, of course, didn't change this to triple axle mode, so I think somebody accidentally changed it, maybe fiddling with the key fob. So it did cross my mind to just remove the key fob from the keychain and not send it out, because they shouldn't need it for anything. I haven't done that. We're going to see if that problem ever comes up again. My guess is it probably won't, but that is the final problem. So interference with newer GM vehicles with the factory brake controller, the fuse holder and or fuse that was dirty and causing a poor connection, and then this one changing either by itself, which I do not think happened, probably somebody fiddling with the key fob remote, and changing it to a different program mode than it was supposed to be in. So you can't see it real well, but here's my Autobrake cable and the main cable on the trailer here, and I've just got them teed together right here, which leads me to one of the complaints about the install is that Autobrake says that it needs to be wired into a power source that is only live when you're plugged into the tow vehicle. And that's not possible without either getting fancy with a relay or putting a switch on it, because when you're teed in to the 12-volt positive that you need to be teed into, that wire is basically going from your tow vehicle battery to the battery on your camper or trailer of any kind. And so when you unplug from the tow vehicle, you're still hooked up because you're teed into this harness. You're still wired straight into that battery. So there's no way to be disconnected there again without putting a fancy relay on here and getting a little creative with wiring, or by putting a switch on. So the reason I believe is because when you first power up the Autobrake, it kind of monitors for a little while whether or not it detects a brake controller. And if it does, it'll go inactive, and if it doesn't, then it'll stay active. But there's simply not a easy way. There's not a wire that you can hook up to that will accomplish that. So I don't know. I'm not sure what the solution is. I haven't dealt with it. I've just left them plugged straight into the battery essentially on the trailer, and if need be, I can always pull the fuse out to power it down. Those are the 3 problems I've had in many rentals, and for the most part it has just been great. I can't imagine them being really any lower maintenance or just operate flawlessly, not having to think about it. So that, in summary, is why I like the Autobrake, and I don't send any of these campers out before I get one installed, and there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They will wind up on all of my rental campers immediately, and I even use them personally. I've got a brake controller for my Lexus GX470, and I have it unplugged. I don't even use it. I just let these do their thing. They work flawless. So thank you for watching.